This demonstration we're going to look at configuring Windows Defender Firewall. Firewall is quite important in the case of network communications. It allows or denies traffic based off rules that we put in place. I'm on my Windows 10 device, so what I've done is I've just come into my Windows Security Center. And in my Windows Security Center I'm going to look at, or I'm going to configure my firewall and network protection. So as we can see at this point here, we can see our various network profiles. So what we have is we've got domain network, so that's me connect to Active Directory. Private network could be my home network. Public network is, let's say I'm sat in an internet cafe, or I'm sat in some remote location on a customer's site, and I need to protect my device when I'm connected to their open Wi-Fi. So as we can see at all points, the firewall is indeed turned on. So what we're going to do at this point here is we're going to modify the advanced settings. Now what that then does is that then brings me into the Microsoft Management Console for creating inbound rules, so data coming in, outbound rules, data going out, and we also have this connection security rules which allows me to create a secure channel between multiple devices. So as data passes across the network, we encrypt or decrypt the data at both ends, and then any data going across the pipe or a bit of cable is encrypted, so that means anybody snooping on that cable will not be able to read the data going backwards and forwards. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come to inbound rules, and in the case of inbound rules, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new rule. And when we create a new rule, what it does is it brings me into Wizard. So I can create a rule based off a program, off a port. So a port is a layer 4. So for example, we have this OSI 7-layer network model. Layer 4 is the transport layer. Transport layer is responsible for a thing called a port, and a port identifies a service. So for example, port 443 identifies HTTPS. We can use the predefined rules that we already have, but for purpose of this demonstration we're going to go for a custom rule, and we'll select next. So in the case of the programs, do I want to apply this to all programs or just a single program? I want to apply this to all programs, so we'll select next. It then says what do I want to apply this to. So what we're going to do for the protocol type is we're going to go for ICMP. Now ICMP is Internet Controlled Message Protocol, so if you've heard of a ping uses ICMP. So we'll select next. In the case of the scope, I want to apply to all addresses. So I don't want to specify individual addresses. We'll select next. Then what we'll do is we'll allow the connection, and we'll select next. We're happy to apply this to all profiles, so we'll select next. And then we just need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it ICMP, and then we'll do a V4. And allowed. Not going to bother with the description at this point here, but if I did, I'd maybe put in allow ping, and then what I'll do is we'll select finish. That's now create my rule, and as you can see, I have my rule up the top here. So let's just move to another device and see if we can actually ping the client PC. So I've just come on to my domain controller. I'm just going to launch a PowerShell, and in the case of PowerShell, all we're going to do at this point here is we'll do a ping lon-cl1. Now what we'll do is we'll just run that ping, and what we should see is we get a reply back. So we can see the firewall is indeed allowing ICMP to go through. Now another thing we can do with the Windows Firewall is we have the ability to create a thing called a security rule, and a security rule allows me to encrypt the data going between two devices. So let's just move back to the client PC. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come to connection security rules, and in connection security rules we're going to create a new rule. So in the rule type, we've got isolation, restrict connections based off authentication criteria. So when you allow devices on the same Active Directory domain to communicate, for example, we can do an authentication exemption. So do not authenticate connections from specified computers. So we trust them. We can do server to server, so that's device to device. We can do tunnel, where we have two routers, and the router connects our two offices or locations via the internet. So what we want to do is we'll send data unencrypted internally. It'll hit the router will then encrypt, send it across the internet, decrypt it at the other end, and then the data moves on to the client PC at the other end, or I can create a custom rule. So what we're going to do for this point here is we're actually going to go for server to server. And at this point here, next thing to do is to select next. On the endpoints, I'm happy with any IP address to any IP address, but I could specify the individual IP addresses of the two devices. So we're not going to at this point here, so we'll just select next. Now what we've got is we've now got our authentication type. So what we have is request authentication for inbound and outbound connections. Okay, we've got require authentication for inbound connections and request authentication for outbound connections. And then we've got require authentication for inbound and outbound. So request means use it if you can use it, and require means you have to use it. So all I'm going to do at this point here is I'm going to require authentication for any inbound connection, and I'll request authentication for any outbound connection. Once we've done all of that, we just need to select our next button. Then on this authentication method at this point here, I'm just going to come down to advanced. I'm just going to customize this. And all we're going to do is we're just going to set our authentication. And all we're going to do at this point here is just for authentication, we'll select add. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it the way that's not really recommended. We're going to use a pre-shared key. We're going to use this as the password at this point here. And then we'll select OK. Now we can select OK again. Now we've done that, select our next button. In the case of our profile, we will apply to everything. So we'll select next. And then we'll just call this secure and comms. And select finish. So now we've set that up, we also need to do that on the device we're going to communicate with. So what we'll also do as well is we'll also set this up on LON-DC1. Once it's set up on LON-DC1, we will test it. So on DC1, I've already created secure comms. So now what we need to do is we'll just go back to LON-CL1 and just create a firewall or modify a firewall rule to only allow the connection to work if the connection is secure. So what we're going to do is come back to our inbound rule. And on our inbound rules, we're going to go for our ICMP version 4 allowed. So we'll just come to the properties. And on the properties, what we'll do is we're just going to modify this to only allow the connection if it is secure. Then what we'll do is select OK. And then what we'll do is we'll move back to LON-DC1 and we'll just send a ping to ensure that it is working correctly. So just on our machine here, we're just going to do a ping LON-CL1. We're getting a reply. We'll just come to the firewall. And on the firewall, we'll come to monitoring. We'll have a look at our security associations. We'll look at our main mode. What we should see is we have got secure communication between the two devices. And that's the end of this demonstration. Thank you.